The mirror that bleeds. There's something about Scorpio that no one truly understands, not even most Scorpios themselves. They walk into a room and they feel everything. Not because someone spoke, not because someone confessed, but because something inside of them, a psychic mirror, absorbed it without permission. Every day, whether they want to or not, Scorpios soak up the energy around them like spiritual sponges. And not just the obvious emotions, not the smiles or the laughter people show on the outside. No, Scorpio absorbs what you're hiding. They absorb your grief, your fear, your jealousy, your unspoken anger, your buried trauma. And then they go home, exhausted, carrying someone else's emotional weight as if it were their own. Most people call it intuition. Some call it empathy. But the truth is far more intense than that. Scorpio is not just intuitive. Scorpio is a mirror of your soul, not the part you show the world, the part you're scared to admit even exists. And when you look into a mirror that feels everything, you don't get to walk away unchanged. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been around a Scorpio and suddenly felt exposed, like they could read your energy without you saying a single word? Have you ever tried to hide something and they just knew that wasn't a guess? That wasn't coincidence. That was Scorpio absorbing you on a level you didn't even know you were transmitting. And they do this every day, without asking, without protection, until one day they burn out. Because the mirror might reflect others, but it also cracks from within. In this video, we're diving into something most people never talk about: the 6 spiritual energies that Scorpio unconsciously absorbs every single day. The kind that drain them, confuse them, transform them, and if they're not careful, the kind that destroy them from the inside out. But here's the truth. Scorpio didn't come to this world to be broken by energy. They came to transform it, to transmute poison into power. And that begins by finally understanding what they're absorbing. Let's begin. Energy 1, the unspoken pain in the room. There is a silence that can scream louder than any words, and Scorpio hears it all. It might be at a family gathering in a boardroom or sitting across from a stranger at a coffee shop. Everyone is smiling. Everything seems fine on the surface, but underneath that polished performance, there's someone suffering, quietly, invisibly, and Scorpio feels it before anyone else. They don't need a confession. They don't need a tear to fall. They don't even need eye contact. Because pain, real unprocessed pain, has an energy signature, and Scorpio's spirit is wired to feel it the moment it enters the room. It's like someone sprayed invisible perfume. Nobody sees it, nobody mentions it. But Scorpio is already coughing, already absorbing the emotional residue like a sponge that never agreed to be wet. This is where the psychic mirror begins its work. Scorpio doesn't reflect the mask you wear. They reflect what's hiding beneath it. And when someone walks into a room hiding grief, shame, or heartbreak, Scorpio mirrors that energy even if they don't realize it. They start to feel drained, heavy, or suddenly anxious without knowing why. They've picked up on someone else's pain and made it their own. There was a therapist in Boston who once described a Scorpio client. She said he'd walk into my office and immediately tell me how I was feeling, before I even opened my mouth. One day, after a brutal argument with my husband, I hadn't even sat down yet, and he looked at me and said, "You're bleeding energy today. Are you okay?" She said it didn't feel creepy. It wasn't invasive. It was something else entirely. It felt like he knew. That's what it's like when you're a Scorpio. You don't just observe people's emotions, you absorb them. You embody them. You walk away from interactions with someone else's sorrow swirling inside your chest. And here's the dangerous part: when you absorb pain that's not yours, it still wounds you. It makes you restless at night. It makes you want to isolate. It makes you weep for reasons you can't explain. because even though the pain wasn't born inside you, it now lives there. Scorpio's gift is their sensitivity, their emotional X-ray vision, but it's also their burden. They don't get to walk through life feeling what others feel and remain untouched. Over time, it weighs on them, it ages them spiritually, it hollows out their joy. But here's the lesson. You are not here to heal everyone. You are not here to carry what others refuse to confront. You are not here to bleed for pain that isn't yours. Feeling someone's pain doesn't make you responsible for solving it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is witness it and release it. So if you're a Scorpio listening to this, take a breath, close your eyes, and ask yourself quietly, how much of what I'm feeling today actually belongs to me? You may discover that half the storm inside you isn't even yours, and the moment you return it to the universe, the mirror clears. You start to feel your own energy again, clean, strong, and whole. Life lesson: in life, we are all mirrors. But Scorpio, they are the mirror that remembers every reflection. If you are a Scorpio, your gift is sacred, but it needs boundaries. Absorbing pain is not the same as transforming it. You must learn to observe without carrying, to love without drowning, and to listen without losing yourself. Because your true power isn't in how much you feel, it's in what you choose to release. Let others keep what belongs to them. You've got your own soul to protect and a destiny that doesn't require you to bleed for everyone else. Energy 2, hidden desires no one dares to speak. Most people think Scorpio only absorbs pain and negativity, but what they don't realize is this Scorpio also absorbs desire, not the kind that's expressed, not the kind that's openly spoken, the kind that lives behind someone's eyes, in their body language, in the pause between words, the kind of desire they bury because they're ashamed of it or afraid of what it might reveal. Scorpio feels that. They walk into a room and feel the pull of silent cravings, forbidden fantasies, and longing that was never meant to be noticed. Sometimes it's sexual, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's the desperate need to be seen by someone who's already turned away. Scorpio feels the heat rising from someone else's soul long before they ever say a word. And this sensitivity, it isn't thrilling, it's overwhelming, because desire, when unspoken, becomes pressure. And Scorpio absorbs that pressure into their own field, their own body. They begin to feel urges that aren't theirs. They start craving things they never wanted because someone else nearby is silently screaming for it. A real-world example: a Scorpio man once told me that he had to leave his job at a luxury clothing store, not because the work was hard, but because the clients were. He said, "I could feel what they wanted the second they walked in, and it was never about the clothes, it was about being noticed, being admired. They wanted to feel powerful, sexy, dominant. I'd look at them and feel their hunger like it was crawling up my spine. And by the end of each shift, I felt possessed." That's the danger. Scorpio doesn't just detect longing, they merge with it. Why this matters? Desire is powerful energy. It's creative, sexual, emotional, even spiritual. But when it's denied, when it's hidden behind false modesty or cultural guilt, it becomes distorted, it becomes obsession. And when Scorpio absorbs someone's distorted desire, they often don't know where it's coming from. They just feel strange, restless, seductive, compelled to act out a feeling that isn't even theirs. This is how Scorpio becomes misunderstood. People sense their magnetism, but don't realize that half of it is reflective. They're not just powerful, they're reflecting your hidden hunger right back at you. Life lesson: Scorpio's mirror does not only reveal pain, it reveals hunger. And unless you learn to ground yourself, protect your energy, and release what doesn't belong to you, you will live haunted by desires you never chose. Your power is not in seduction, it's in clarity. So before you act, before you spiral, before you claim a craving, ask yourself, is this really mine? Or did I absorb it from someone else? True freedom begins when you know the difference. That's when you stop being consumed by energy and start transforming it. Energy 3. Silent jealousy that follows them like a shadow. You won't always see it. No one ever admits it out loud. But when a Scorpio walks into a room, someone nearby feels smaller, less confident, threatened. And in that space of quiet insecurity, a dangerous emotion is born: jealousy. Not the explosive kind that lashes out, but the secret kind, the quiet kind, the kind that smiles to your face while silently wishing you would stumble. And Scorpio, they feel it the moment it forms, because jealousy, like pain or desire, has an energy pattern. It's cold, it's sharp, it slithers into the space like static in the air. Most people ignore it, deny it, or pretend they don't notice. But Scorpio's body tightens, their eyes narrow. Something inside says, watch that one. They want something you have, and they'll never say it. Scorpios are not threatened by jealousy, but they are drained by it. Why? Because it forces them into energetic self-defense even when nothing has happened yet. They start scanning for betrayal before it occurs. They begin rehearsing responses for attacks that haven't come. They start to armor up emotionally, not out of paranoia, but because their mirror is already reflecting the silent resentment in someone else's heart. A story that illustrates this. A Scorpio woman once described working with another woman who seemed friendly, too friendly, always complimenting her, always laughing at her jokes. But one day she said, I felt like she hated me. I couldn't explain it. Her words were sweet, but her energy was bitter. It was like I could taste vinegar when she smiled. Weeks later, that coworker spread lies behind her back. The betrayal wasn't a surprise. Scorpio already felt it before it happened. This is the exhausting truth. Scorpios absorb jealousy before jealousy has a voice, and it leaves them tense, fatigued, even angry, without knowing exactly why. Why this is dangerous for Scorpio. Living in a constant state of hyper-awareness burns you out. Not every jealous glance needs a response. Not every threatened person will strike. But the psychic mirror doesn't wait for logic. It reflects what is now. And that means Scorpio often walks through life defending themselves from invisible daggers. Even worse, sometimes they begin to believe they're causing the jealousy, that their presence is too much, that they should shrink themselves to make others feel more comfortable. That's when the mirror becomes a cage. Life lesson. You were not born to make others comfortable. You were not born to shrink your power just to avoid envy. Scorpio, if your energy triggers jealousy that is not your burden to carry, let others do their inner work. You don't need to absorb their insecurity. You don't need to shapeshift into something smaller. You were born to be seen, fully, and without apology. Let them watch. Let them whisper. But never let their jealousy rewrite your worth. Energy 4. Repressed anger that others try to bury. Anger has a smell, not literal but energetic. It's sharp, metallic, almost electric. And when someone enters a space carrying repressed rage, trying to smile through clenched teeth, pretending nothing's wrong, Scorpio senses it like a storm forming behind their eyes. Most people are fooled by politeness, not Scorpio. They look at someone laughing too hard and feel the fury hidden behind the laughter. They hear someone's calm voice, but sense the tension pulsing underneath each word. Because Scorpio doesn't respond to words, they respond to vibration. And buried anger is one of the heaviest frequencies in the human emotional field. Scorpio doesn't fear anger. They understand it better than most. But what drains them is the denial of anger, the fake calm, the forced cheerfulness, the people who pretend everything is fine while something inside them is boiling. Scorpio absorbs that pressure, and it becomes their own. They walk away from conversations they thought were simple, only to find themselves agitated, restless, even confrontational, not realizing they just carried someone else's unresolved fury home with them. A real-life example. A Scorpio I once interviewed told me this. My sister would always come over and act happy, smiling, joking, acting like everything was okay. But after every visit, I'd feel this explosive rage, and I didn't know why until one day she confessed she'd been secretly resentful of me for years. I had been absorbing all of it, even when she didn't say a word. That's the power and the burden of being a psychic mirror. You don't get to choose what you reflect, you just do. And when someone's holding back anger but pretending they're fine. Scorpio mirrors both energies, and the contradiction begins to tear at their own peace. Why this matters: unacknowledged anger is toxic, not just to the person holding it, but to anyone sensitive enough to feel it. Scorpios don't just sense the storm, they often swallow it. And this is what makes them emotionally unpredictable. They aren't always angry for themselves, they're angry for others. For the injustice they feel but can't name. For the fights that should have been fought but never were. It's a dangerous place to be carrying fire that isn't yours, but burns just the same. Life lesson: Scorpio, you must protect your emotional center. Not every clenched smile deserves your intuition. Not every fake "I'm fine" needs to be diluted. You are not responsible for calming every storm around you. Anger is a sacred emotion, but only when it's honest. When others bury theirs, let them carry the weight of it. You have enough power of your own. Learn to let unspoken rage pass through you, not into you. Your role is not to absorb the world's fire. Your role is to master your own flame. Energy 5. Grief that lingers in the air. There is a certain kind of grief that doesn't cry. It doesn't shout. It doesn't ask for help. It just sits quietly in someone's chest. And Scorpio feels it instantly. Most people overlook it because it doesn't look like tragedy. It looks like someone still going to work, still smiling at the dinner table, still saying "I'm fine," but inside their spirit is aching for something or someone they've lost. And this kind of silent sorrow leaves a residue in the air, in the home, in their body language. Scorpio doesn't need to hear the story. They already feel the ending. They can walk into a stranger's home and feel the energy of someone who's passed. They can touch an object, a photograph, a ring, a sweater, and feel the weight of memory inside it. They can be sitting beside a friend and feel a wave of emotion rising, not because of what's being said, but because of what's missing from the conversation. That's what grief does. It creates energetic holes. And Scorpio, being as spiritually porous as they are, fills those holes with their own presence. They absorb the sadness others cannot process. They carry the echoes of what was never said. They mirror the absence of what used to be. A story of subtle grief. A Scorpio once told me that he never liked being in hospitals, not because of the sickness, but because of what stayed behind. He said, "When I walk into a room where someone has died, I don't just feel the loss, I feel the grief of the family who cried there. I feel what they couldn't say, what they held in, what still clings to the curtains, the chairs, the walls." This is what Scorpio endures, often without words. Because no one talks about the grief that hides in functioning people. No one warns you that the quietest room might still be full of ghosts. But Scorpio knows. Why this is so exhausting. Absorbing grief that isn't yours is like holding your breath underwater and forgetting that you can come up. Scorpio often walks away from interactions with a heaviness that's hard to describe. They feel hollow, tired, spiritually sore. And the worst part is, they think it's theirs. They think something is wrong with them when really they've just picked up on someone else's buried mourning. Life lesson, Scorpio. You must learn to honor grief without becoming a graveyard for everyone else's sorrow. You are not a vessel for what others won't release. You are not the resting place for unlived tears. Yes, you feel it. Yes, you carry it. But you do not have to keep it. Your gift is to bear witness, not to be buried. So when you feel the heaviness come, ask yourself, is this my grief? Or did I inherit it from someone who never spoke it? Let it pass, let it go, and let your soul breathe again. Energy 6, spiritual signals from the unseen. There are things most people never notice. A strange chill in the air, a flicker in the light, a moment when time feels stretched. But Scorpio does notice. Because while others only live in the physical, Scorpio listens to the invisible. They absorb energy not just from people, but from places, moments, memories, and even the spiritual realm. Scorpio's mirror reflects not only what is present, but also what is hovering nearby. They sense the presence of ancestors, the weight of past trauma embedded in a location, and the spiritual residue left behind by events no one ever talks about. And often it arrives without warning. They walk into a room and suddenly feel watched, not by someone, but by something. They dream of a person they've never met. And the next day that person appears. They touch an old object and are flooded with emotion they can't explain. These are not just coincidences. These are messages, energetic signals from the beyond. And Scorpio doesn't just receive them, they absorb them. A true and haunting account. One Scorpio woman told me that she once stayed at an old bed and breakfast in New Orleans. It was beautiful, restored, warm. But the moment she stepped in, she felt different. She couldn't sleep. Her dreams were full of a woman crying. When she asked the staff the next morning, they confessed a woman lost her husband in this house. She never left. Some say you can still feel her when it rains. Scorpio didn't need the history book. She felt it. This is what separates Scorpio from other signs. They're not just emotional, they're energetically tuned. They pick up what others deny, what history forgets, what the spirit world whispers when no one else is listening. Why this can be overwhelming, Scorpio doesn't always know what they're feeling or where it's coming from, and that's the most terrifying part. When the mirror reflects, the invisible Scorpio can mistake spiritual signals for personal turmoil. They think they're going crazy. They question their stability. But what's really happening is this: they're absorbing energy across dimensions. They're walking between worlds, and no one ever taught them how to protect themselves. Life lesson, Scorpio. Your gift is not madness, it's mysticism. You were born with spiritual radar, but even radar needs calibration. Learn to ground, cleanse, protect. Recognize when energy is not of this world and do not fear it. You are not haunted, you are aware. When something from beyond calls to you, listen, but don't lose yourself in it. You are not the message, you are the channel. And when you learn to use that channel with wisdom, you become something rare, not just a mirror, but a beacon for healing, for truth, and for light that transcends even death. Conclusion. When the mirror finally sees itself, Scorpio doesn't walk through life like other signs. They don't just see people, they read them. They don't just feel emotions, they absorb them. Every single day, Scorpio acts as a mirror for the hidden, the unspoken, the unresolved. Pain, desire, jealousy, anger, grief, spirits. They feel it all without asking, and most of the time without knowing where it begins or ends. But here's the deepest truth of all. When you spend your life reflecting others, you start to forget what you look like. You carry energies that don't belong to you. You feel emotions that never started inside you. You react to wounds that aren't yours to heal. And one day you look in the mirror and you don't recognize the face staring back. That is the silent suffering of Scorpio, but it is also the beginning of their transformation. Because once Scorpio recognizes the weight they've been absorbing, they begin to reclaim their power. They begin to ask, what is mine and what have I inherited? What do I feel and what have I mirrored? What do I need to return, release, or simply let pass through me? And in that moment of clarity, Scorpio becomes something more. No longer a sponge, no longer a vessel for what others fear. They become an alchemist, turning spiritual residue into divine wisdom. Final life lesson. If you are a Scorpio, you are not broken. You are not cursed. You are not too sensitive. You are simply tuned into the layers of existence that most people ignore. But with that gift comes a sacred responsibility to protect your inner world as fiercely as you understand the outer one. You are not here to absorb everything. You are here to transform what matters and release the rest. So the next time you feel heavy without reason, the next time your spirit aches and you can't explain why, stop, breathe, and ask, is this mine? Because your power begins the moment you remember. You are not just a mirror for others. You are a reflection of the soul itself. And the soul was never meant to carry what does not belong. Before you go, if this message spoke to something deep within you, if you've ever walked through life carrying feelings you couldn't explain, then the path to Buddha wisdom was created for souls exactly like yours. Subscribe now and walk with us into the mysteries, because here we don't just explore astrology, we reveal the soul beneath it. And for Scorpio, the path is never surface level. It's deep, it's raw, it's transformational. So hit that subscribe button, join the path to Buddha wisdom, and let your inner power awaken.